Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to go ahead and get started with roll call.
Sure.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Sure about that?
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker.
Here.
And Mayor Cardenas.
Present. All right, and then if you guys would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, going to be led by our Chief Medueño, and then remain standing for the invocation.
All right, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you guys can remain standing. Precious Lord, thank you again for this day. We're just grateful for everything that you have done. And again, we just ask for your guidance and wisdom. We ask that you be with our community, our staff, Lord, and our city. And we just do this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Moving on, we'll go ahead and ask our awesome city attorney, Ms. Betsy, for a report back or a report out on the closed session.
There is no reportable action.
Very nice. And with that being said, I'll also ask our city clerk to read an important announcement to our public, please.
This is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you're asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency are not required to identify themselves. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council, successor agency, or the RDA, or the housing agency, successor housing agency, concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Diane. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move down to item number 1. And a great way to start off our city council meeting. That's with a proclamation presentation in regards to National Public Works Week. So I do have a proclamation, and I'm actually very grateful to be presenting that. Terry, will you be accepting that, or who will be accepting that? Would you like to approach the podium so I can read you this proclamation? As you may know, Terry and his team does a lot of great things and for our community. Very, very tough job. And we do appreciate not only you, Terry, but your staff as well. And as a result, we do proclaim National Public Work Week. So we do have a proclamation for you. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. And it says, National Public Works Week, May 22nd through 21st. It says, public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to the sustainable communities and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of the city of El Centro. Such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, and employees. And together, they plan, design, build, and operate structures and facilities essential to serving our citizens and the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel whose staff public works is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And now, therefore, I, Alex Cardenas, Mayor of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim May 22nd through 27th, 2017, as National Public Works Week in the City of El Centro, and encourage all to join in this observation. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if our council wants to chime in on some of the great work that you do. Any general comments from council, starting with Mayor Pro Tem?
So had the opportunity to be at the Chamber of Commerce board meeting yesterday and shared with them the overlay project that we have going on and talked about the complete streets, safe routes to school, and all of that. And they're really, really excited. So I wanted to let you know that they commend you and your staff for all the great things that you're doing to improve quality of life here in El Centro. So
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Jackson?
I'll just add that with, as Cheryl just mentioned, there is a lot of people that are excited about certain streets that are slated for overlay, and I know the biggest one that I will hopefully stop getting phone calls on after we're finished is the Ross Road over by Industry Way and that whole area right there that's on the overlay list. So looking forward to that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Silva?
Mr. Mayor, as you were reading the proclamation, I couldn't help but kind of think about the essential work that Public Works provides for all of us, and many times that work goes unrecognized, because we only think about you when we need you and something has, needs fixing, or street or sewer or some of those things that we cannot live without. So I think many times that work goes underappreciated, but not from this council, because we do truly appreciate what your department does and how you are, an essential component of the city and what makes the city what it is. So thank you for the work and also for all your staff.
Councilmember Garcia?
Mr. Hagan, your work is exemplary, as seen by all of your work with the staff and the projects that are going on. We definitely see work going on in the city. A lot of people are excited about the projects that are going on, and as Councilman Silva said, it is a department that is often overlooked. It's not the flashy one, but it is one of the most important. So I commend you on your work and keep it up. We all live in this wonderful city. We want to keep it improving.
Thank you.
All right, and just in closing, I do want to also recognize Mr. Campos and also Ms. Villacana, who is hiding back there, but thanks again. And so we'll go ahead and take a picture with you. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Could he say no? I don't think that's an option.
Need to come on up, Ms. Villacana, take a picture. There's a gift card in here, too. Is Villacana gonna come up, or?
We're gonna have the purples on this side. Oh, this is nice, purples and blues and
Yeah.
blacks and. Nice job,
take a shower.
gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you very
Congrats. Okay. All right, very good. Again, congratulations on that. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to item number 2, and that's the introduction of our new employees. Chief Madueño, I believe we have some new employees, or a new employee that you would like to introduce.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. So I'd like to call up our newest employee, Aristeo Valdez. He was hired as our newest dispatcher on April 17th, and I'll let him say a few words about himself.
Good afternoon, Council. Again, Aristeo Valdez, I'm the newest dispatcher, just hired this last month. Originally from Raleigh, born and raised. Went out, did my college education, decided to come back, try to make an impact in our county, especially now hired in the city, trying to make an impact in the city of El Centro. Any way I can, any small, feasible way I can.
Well, great. We do welcome you, and thank you, Chief, for bringing our newest employees here. Always appreciate that, and appreciate your efforts. Any just general comments from the council regarding our newest employee?
I'm not gonna link the two, but we've had some pretty incredible calls for service recently, both by police and fire. But anyway, you kind of jumped in there with both feet, and we really welcome you to the city of El Centro and hope that you find your employment here to be very, very rewarding.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And I always appreciate, being introduced to new employees, particularly from the police department, because I think they do an extraordinary job in finding local talent to fulfill those precious good jobs that we have in Imperial Valley. So even though you're from Raleigh, we still consider you local. That division only goes through high school, and then after that, it goes away. But because I think that you're a member of the Imperial Valley community, and you have roots here, and you're likely to stay in Imperial Valley and maybe grow within the department if the opportunity arises. So we all feel that you're joining the finest police department, and certainly in Imperial Valley and beyond. So congratulations, and hope for a long tenure with the city of El Centro.
Right.
Councilmember Jackson?
So are you living in El Centro, or are you still?
No, I still live in Brawley.
You still live in
Still
Raleigh?
Wildcat at heart.
All right, so we'll give you a little bit of time to relocate to Save El Centro, but no, congratulations, welcome to Save El Centro, and I think it's been said already, but it's always good to get local talent, and because this is what this is our home, it's all of our homes, and so I think we treat our home differently than if it wasn't our home. So, thank you for being part of the Save El Centro.
Councilmember Garcia?
Welcome to the department. You've heard this time and time again. You work for a great department. You're under great leadership, and just welcome to the city. I hope you have a very fruitful and promising career, and hopefully we'll see you out at our events in El Centro and eventually get you down here.
And again, just on behalf of the mayor, just want to welcome you and welcome to our family. And again, hope you make this a career, and hopefully we will see you be retiring here sometime soon. But thanks again for being here, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Have a good day.
All right. Okay, thanks again, Chief. We're going to go ahead and move down to item number 3, and we actually have a presentation from Mr. Imperial regarding the nonprofit organization Imperial Valley Risk Youth Foundation requesting a non-exclusive lease user agreement for sunflower baseball fields. So, Mr. Imperial, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Joey Imperial, owner of the Downtown Crest Event Center. I apologize for my tire. Just got off the baseball field. You all look important here, so I apologize, but I'm a little dirty. But I left my kids with my coaches out there in the baseball field. As far as how it works, do I tell you to change the? I've never done this here.
You have a clicker if you want
Should
it.
be a clicker there.
That's the technical term.
Yeah,
The technical
It's a little
term is
sophisticated here. I
clicker.
apologize.
So it's this right button right
And then that. Okay, so I'm president and founder of IV At-Risk Youth Betterment Foundation. This is year 3. I have about 107 kids now, and it's growing. And so what it is, I'm utilizing baseball as an outreach program. I'm targeting at-risk youth, but at-risk youth sort of covers a little bit of everybody as far as kids are concerned. All kids could be at-risk youth. At this point, I'm using baseball as an outreach platform, but there are plans to go ahead and bring in football. There's some plans for that, and other sports as well. And I'll go through this. I have 3 minutes, right? Yeah, she's timing me, so I'll be quick. All right. As far as my legal structure, I am really a 501c, both IRS and California State Franchise Tax Board, so I went through that about 4 years ago. Took me about a year to get this. Let's see here real quick. Where's it at? As far as my charters, I started Pony Baseball. It's been very successful, and I also started Babe Ruth Baseball. As far as Pony, it's currently in play. Matter of fact, I'm setting kids for league games this Saturday. We've been doing almost every other weekend, sending the kids to San Diego. So they're getting exposed to, just for league games, from kids from other communities. And I think that's pretty exciting. So I just set them up for 4 games this Saturday.
Yeah, so the pony division is for what age?
They're all ages. They're a 70-year-old organization similar to Little League. And so it ranges from T-ball, which is, I believe you can start at 5. It goes all the way up to 18. There's different divisions. Of course, I use the baseball field, so I got to have liability insurance. Marcella made sure that I had liability insurance, so I got it. What I've done here on page, well, this right here, I've done the baseball academy, the Babe Ruth, the Pony, the umpire stuff. I also last year brought in Cal State San Bernardino, a Division II university, and their coaches, their main coach and coaches came down, and they did a clinic, a 2-day clinic, and they offered a scholarship to one of our kids. They're following too. So that's going to be implemented every year. So I'm basically bringing in outside talent into the Valley to get our kids exposed. But I'm emphasizing not just the sports, but academics as well. And this is the future goal. I would like to have, through my nonprofit, an indoor youth center with indoor batting cages, boxing, MMA, martial arts, weights, tutoring program utilizing student teaching. I used to be a student teacher myself, as far as in the program, as a credential program. So I want to utilize those as far as healthy snacks as well for nutrition. These are the training that I've gone through. I've gone through professional training for umpiring, concussion, you name it. I have the CIF accreditation through my nonprofit. So I'm also continuing education is very important, so I'm doing that as well. All right, so the proposal has changed because of the, I didn't know that Sunflower Park is what I'm focusing on. I've been utilizing those fields, and it's pretty bad out there as far as dirt is concerned. I'll be talking about that shortly. And so I didn't know that the school district owns that property. So I didn't know the limitations on it. So now instead of calling it a non-exclusive deal, as far as lease, I'm calling it a collaborative working partnership between the City of El Centro, Parks and Recreation, and my nonprofit organization. The objectives is establishing a collaborative effort so as to beautify and maintain the Sunflower baseball fields. I am already establishing a year-round baseball program. We'll have breaks in the winter, but I've established and recruiting kids for summer ball and also fall ball. Not only here locally, but also traveling and taking them out to different communities. I've set up games for Yuma, Coachella Valley, and as I speak, we're actually playing in San Diego as well.
Joy, you're calling them baseball fields, but my recollection of the area, at least I can picture the area, I see one. Is there more than one?
There's two, and there's a map actually
Okay.
in there. As far as the funding model, I better hurry up because my 3 minutes are almost over. As far as the funding model is concerned, through my nonprofit, I've talked to Marcella about it. We can fundraise whatever labor we can utilize through the city as far as the parks and then ourselves. As far as equipment, I've already purchased equipment through my fundraising efforts. And as far as budgeting, it's sort of a pilot program, so it's a little difficult as far as to figure out what the total cost will be. There are costs for this grass project that we're about to engage in. I'm gonna jump into the grass. Okay. Matter of fact, where's that? There it is. You see the map there?
Oh, yeah, yes. Okay,
That's
got it.
sunflower.
Yes,
That's
sir.
sunflower. In the Little League part, because it's a basin, it's all dirt. And so it's powdered dirt. We eat dirt all the time. It's unfortunate, me and my kids. And so this is what I was talking to Marcella about, is to try to grow some grass down there. They took some dirt samples. We don't have the report back on that yet. And there's two alternatives as far as trying to get some grass down there. One of the alternatives is pretty expensive. As a matter of fact, James Clark went through that with the Imperial Valley girls softball field. They dropped about almost $40,000. And half was grants and half was their money that they raised through fundraising efforts. And that's basically excavating going down no foot, about 0.885 acres of new dirt, taking out the old dirt, bringing the new dirt. And then obviously, that's just the cost of just bringing the new dirt, taking out the old one and bringing it in, not including actually planting the grass and the seed and all that stuff. My sources that I spoke with are Reyes Romero from County of Imperial Air Pollution Control District, Richard Lucio, Matt Mills, Jacob Galen, and this morning actually was Jim Abadi we met at the field. There's an alternative as far as just planting. It's called a whole Highlander Bermuda grass type seed. And supposedly it has high alkaline resistance. And the cost just for that field alone, just the outfield, because we're keeping the dirt, there's clay in the infield, is $270 for the Bermuda grass seed, about $300 for a pre-plant germination fertilizer blend, and about $100 a month for maintenance, because you got to keep throwing sulfur in there because of the alkaline. So that's where we're engaged right now. And I'm just coming to let you know that I'd like to establish an MOU with the city parks and see what we can do about that field and beautify it. Because I am utilizing it. This is year 3, and I'm actually growing, and I'm bringing in more kids. Like I said, I have 107. Next year, I'm supposed to have 10 teams for pony, and not including just summer and fall. And so I need some help. And that's the end of my presentation.
Well, we appreciate your presentation. I actually have a couple different questions, but I'm going to go ahead and defer to our council. And do we want to, or council, do you guys want to make some inquiries or questions?
I have a couple of questions for Mr. Imperial and then a question for staff. So What's your definition of an at-risk youth?
To me, well, me being one myself back in the days, it could be any kid that can fall into the wrong. It can be hanging out with the wrong crowd, being out in the streets, doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And I think any kid is susceptible to that, depending on. And I'm speaking from my experience when I was a teenager as well, and a small kid. Whether a kid has a father or not, or a broken home, there's all kinds of different variables.
Okay,
But
so here's where I'm going with this. I have a real issue with labels,
Right.
with labeling this area. Through legislation has been labeled a disadvantaged community.
Sure.
And when I travel, I have an absolute come apart anytime someone uses that phrase. And I said, you know what? They didn't understand the unintended consequences of labeling different areas in California disadvantaged communities, because it just does something to you, to your psyche. And why couldn't we be a community of opportunity or something like that? So, I mean, I've really started laying the groundwork every opportunity to say, don't call me that. And so when I have kind of a negative reaction
connotation to
when
that,
you
right.
say, hey, you know, these are at-risk youth. I mean, it's okay if you kind of understand that intellectually, but as a parent, I would say, well, do I want my kid to be labeled at risk?
Right.
And if I don't think they're at risk, do I want them hanging out with kids that are labeled at risk?
Right.
So I'm wondering if we can kind of retool that a little bit, thinking maybe we could.
Well,
come up
I
with a
understand
different-
you. I come from
Yeah.
a different background, and what I went through, my experiences, and so to me that was,
And there you're making
What-
a real big assumption as to what my background even was.
Right.
But go ahead.
well, assumption's assumption. But the point is that I'm about helping kids regardless, and I deal with all different types of kids. I really do.
Okay.
I'm more than just a coach. Sometimes I'm even a counselor or guidance. I even talk to parents about situations. So whether I was born and raised here, I own a business here in El Centro. I went to school here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just how you feel, I feel the same way. But at least I'm trying. I can only speak for myself that I want to do something about it, and I'm using sports as a platform to reach whoever it is, because I never deny kids at all.
Okay. Then a question for staff. So
Mm-hmm.
for the 30 years that we were involved in youth soccer, we always had meetings at the community center where all of the clubs would come together and talk with staff about needs for fields, dates, number of kids, all of that, so that the priority listing would kind of be worked out, so that there was always an opportunity to best utilize the facilities, have some time out so the facilities can rest and regroup and all of that. Does the city staff still hold those types of meetings with the youth and adult leagues?
We don't necessarily hold meetings. What has happened is, I guess throughout the years, we pretty much know the schedules of all the leagues. One of the things that we encourage any group, whether it's a league or any other group that's interested in using our fields or parks, is to submit their information in advance. That's why when we met with Mr. Imperial, we indicated to him that because we have multiple users of our fields, we cannot have any kind of exclusivity, that we follow the city's policy when it comes to the usage of fields. And so pretty much, as I said, we have an established schedule. If there's a conflict, we try to work it out, obviously, with the league. And of course, we're also trying to make sure that we give our fields an opportunity to rest, which has been very, very challenging because we do have these requests.
So who else do we have out there that's currently using the Padre Park, right? I mean, initially the funding came from the Padres to kind of do some improvements. but-
At this time, Mr. Imperial is the only one that is using it, but however, he does understand that in the event we do get another request, that, you know, we try to accommodate that as well.
Thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Joy, what exactly are you asking? I mean, you're asking for, obviously, cooperation with the city, and obviously, you're going to have to speak with the school district, seeing how they own the property, but what specifically, if you were to narrow it down, what is it that you would be wanting from the city?
To begin with, like something like an MOU, working with the city parks and my nonprofit organization to beautify those fields as best as to the extent possible. It's just not about my organization; it's whoever can enjoy it. Get some grass in there, paint, whatever projects we can do to beautify that. And as far as costs and labor, At this point, other than if I have to raise those funds for that grass seed, then that's fine, I can fundraise. What I'm asking for the city, if we can utilize some of the park and recreation's labor or equipment, whatever to the extent possible that they can, is what I'm asking.
And on the actual field, would there need to be, the field be discs and turned over or anything like that before the pre-plan, or what, is there any
Yes.
prep work that needs to
Yes,
be done?
yes.
So that would be maybe something that you'd look for from the city or the school district to help with?
Correct, and also Mr. Jim Abadi has offered his services as well.
He's got a few pieces of equipment, I think. he could probably
Yes, he's
try to figure out.
well-known, very good resources.
Yeah. I commend you. I think this is, anytime we have anybody in our community that comes forward that's willing to put up their own time and their own money to help the youth of our valley and our city specifically, I can't say enough about it. So I commend you, and anything that, I personally can do. I can't speak for the council. I mean, we'll see
Right.
what we can do as a city, but certainly I'd like to help you personally, because I think that, I think we do have a lot of kids out there that are on the verge of, they have that tipping point. Do they make the decision to do maybe the right thing or the wrong thing, or do they hang out with the right kind of people, or maybe do they get drug into the wrong crowd? And sports has always been something that's, I think, helped, keep some people out of that area. I mean, I think our PAL program is incredibly successful. Our soccer program through PAL, and the thing that they've done there with the boxing and the martial arts and everything with the kids through the PAL program has just been incredible. So, and I've always been supportive of that organization too. So seeing another organization come forth and helping kids, like I said, I commend your efforts, and anything I can do to help, I'll be willing to help you out.
Thank you.
And I feel the same way as far as, the what you're doing to our community and our kids. That's awesome, and being able to help out all children. I think
I
all
love-
children
yes,
are
yes.
at risk at some
Love kids,
point
love
or
what I'm
another.
doing, love coaching.
And all of my kids are grown. They're all grown men and grown women, and so I kind of lost sense of youth sports. But I know that there's a little league. There's a little league already in El Centro, correct?
Yes.
And there's a Babe Ruth.
No, I just got, that's been gone actually for about 10 years.
Okay.
So I'm bringing back the charter for that.
Okay.
And then Pony's a whole different organization.
Okay.
And then, so we're.
So are you associated with the existing little league?
No.
Somehow that's
Po-
separate.
Correct. Pony's a different organization, a national organization, but it's
Okay.
separate, correct.
Okay. And we haven't had good luck. Is that a retention basin? Is that why it's area? Yes. So we haven't had a lot of luck in having grass grow on retention basins. And so I think that before anyone spends any kind of money there, that we want to make sure that we talk to the right people and make sure that the
Yes.
grass will grow there. And that's why I couldn't remember that one field, because it doesn't have any grass,
Right.
correct?
And the Brucherie, there's two that have been successful, the
Right.
grass, but then
Yeah.
there's some that haven't.
Yeah.
So we are doing the due diligence as far as, there's some soil samples, we're waiting for the results. Had Mr. Jim Abadi go in there and give me his recommendation and talk to several people as well.
Yeah.
So there is a plan.
Oh, thank you. Good job.
Any other comments? I have a couple inquiries, but you okay, Mr. Garcia?
I'd just like to commend the work that you're doing. Obviously, it's a labor of love. You've done this for years now, and it seems that you're completely self-motivated to do this. It's good for the community. Whatever I can do personally, we've discussed other sorts of sponsorships
Yes.
before, and whatever we can do as a city, we'll definitely discuss it.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Well, it seems to think that public-private relationships, especially or collaboratives, are probably the best when it comes to, working these types of projects or these types of projects. I just know that from a risk management standpoint, when you have other people working on city property, I don't know if that's going to cause any concerns, Marcella, or do we need to look at an LSR or request an LSR? Because, if we have folks that are going to be providing in-kind services and, heavy equipment and that kind of stuff, I believe we were successful with the girls softball project. But I want to make sure that what I'm hearing is that he's offering some in-kind support in beautifying our fields. Is that a relationship that we can enter into?
Yes, we can. And obviously, we work with other organizations. You may recall that when SOAR thought the improvements were done on those fields, we did have a lot of collaboration and volunteer work that went into that, and that proved to be successful. We've also worked with, as Mr. Imperial pointed out, the softball league that's using Debbie Pittman.
Right.
And it also has been very successful. So that's why we're contemplating an MOU first to obviously allow Mr. Imperial to be able to go out and maybe seek some of that support. Obviously, him being a nonprofit, and him as basically as a community member, maybe be more successful in obtaining funds. As far as the actual scope of work and how we're going to work that out, that's something that, elements that we're still putting together, and us determining perhaps what can city staff do to minimize our liability and how he can help out. So it's still a work in progress. We have met with Mr. Imperial, Mr. Legakis and I have met with him, and so it's a project that we are currently working on.
And then in regards to the exclusivity component or the request for exclusivity, is that even an option? Explore- or was it exclusive or non-exclusive? So it's non-exclusive?
No.
That was, when I turned that in, it was too late for me to change things.
Okay.
So no, I'm not asking for that because now I know the facts. So a collaborative partnership, whatever you want to call it, as far as whatever terminology. I just want to help.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm ready, and whatever help I can get, I just want to beautify those fields for our kids.
Great. So I guess what I'm hearing is that there is consensus that this relationship be explored and continued, and we'll direct staff that they continue to work with you. Has there been any visibility given to our Parks and Recs Commission and Library Board? Are they aware of this? Did this come before them at any point in time?
No, but we will schedule it. We actually just met with Mr. Imperial late last week, and so we're going to go ahead and present it at our next meeting in June.
Excellent.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
All right,
Great,
so I appreciate your presentation, Mr. Imperial. It appears that we have the general consensus to move forward. We're going to get some other folks involved. Looking forward to this collaborative relationship, you helping us beautify these fields and your passion in improving our community. So we appreciate the partnership.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Sorry about the 3 minutes.
No, that's all right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Moving down to the consent item, and we do have items 4 through 13 in regards to consent. So is there any member from the council that would like to pull an item regarding 4 through 13? Being that there's none, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion, or I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent item. Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Silva, second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker, and actually we have a motion from Councilmember Garcia, second by Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker, and that is successfully adopted 5-0. In regards to item number 14, I am going to go ahead and recuse myself. This is the public hearing involving the Buena Vista Landscaping. My address is 998 Desert View. So at this point, I'm going to ask my Mayor Pro Tem to go ahead and run that item for me, please, and I'm going to go ahead and recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. We have a presentation then by our Director of Finance, Ms. Salcido.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. On an annual basis, the Buena Vista Landscape and Lighting District determines the levy and collection of the assessment needed for the coming year. This is based on an engineer's report for the district. That engineer's report is prepared by our consultant. Today, this is a public hearing, and we're asking at the conclusion of the public hearing to adopt a resolution approving the engineer's report regarding Buena Vista Landscaping and Lighting District and the levy and collection of the assessments.
Was there a presentation or no presentation?
Presentation as to...
Oh, it's just because the screen changed, so I didn't know if we were queuing up a
basically,
presentation or not.
and what it
Okay.
is this is for the Buena Vista Landscape and Lighting District. Just a little background, 465 units. The levy for the district is $10. The maximum levy that we can assess is 163, so the actual levy will be way below the maximum. We currently have some reserves that allow us the flexibility to do that, assess less than the maximum amount for
Okay.
the Buena Vista Landscape and Lighting District.
Very good. At this point in time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wanting to speak on item 14? Not, we'll close the public hearing and return to council. This is resolution number 17-44. 44, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro approving the engineer's report regarding Buena Vista Landscaping and Lighting District and authorizing the levy and collection of assessments related thereto, commencing in fiscal year 17-18. We have a motion by Jackson, second by Silva.
Question?
We have one, a question?
Question.
Yes.
Who does the maintenance on the, after the assessment? Who do we contract? We contract that out, right?
It's with the city, yes, but we contract it out. We have various firms throughout the city.
And do we have oversight of that? Or is like?
Yes, it's our Parks Department that oversees the maintenance.
And I know it's something that will be further down the line on the agenda regarding code enforcement and everything is weed abatement and everything. And I'm just wondering, I haven't driven by that subdivision in the last few weeks, but I know a month or so ago, there was quite a few weeds and some wild salt cedars starting to grow and everything. So I'm just wondering if we need to maybe have some oversight. Check that for us.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
We balloted, we had, that passed with 4 yes, 1 abstention. Now we need our mayor back.
Should we just leave them
Oh,
outside?
no, wait, no, we're not gonna leave him out.
Just
We
leave
need him
him
back.
No, yeah. The next one is Legacy, so he
Yeah.
can come back, yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move down to item number 15, and this is a public hearing for the purpose of approving the engineering report regarding Legacy Ranch Landscaping and Lighting District and the levy and collection of assessments related thereto, commencing in fiscal year 2017, 2018. Ms. Salcido?
Yes, basically the same situation. We again have to, on an annual basis, determine the levy and collection of the assessment needed for the coming year. This is based on an engineer's report. Our Walden is our consultant preparing the engineer's report. Today is a public hearing, at the end of which we would like the adoption of the resolution approving the engineer's report regarding Legacy Ranch Landscape and Lighting District. This district is made up of 143 units, 37 acres, a 1.5 acre park. The levy recommended with this engineer's report is $50. The maximum is $472. We currently have a reserve, again, that allows us the flexibility to impose a lower levy than the maximum allowed.
Very good. At this time, if there's no questions from council, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing regarding item number 15. Dan, is there any comments in relation to this item?
No.
Being that there's no comments, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Any additional comments regarding council regarding item number 15? Being that there's none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 17
45.
35?
45.
Oh, 45. I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker, second from Edgar Garcia. We'll go ahead and vote. And that carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Moving down to item number 16. This is also a public hearing for the purpose of approving the engineer report regarding the El Centro Town Center Landscaping and Lighting District and authorizes the levy and collection of assessments related thereto, commencing in fiscal year 2017, 2018. Ms. Salcido?
Basically the same situation. This is on an annual basis. We have to determine the levy and collection of the assessment for the El Centro Town Center Landscape and Lighting District. This is a public hearing, at the end of which we would like for your approval of resolution approving the engineer's report and the levy and collection of the assessment related to this landscape and lighting district. This district is made up of 27 parcels, 138.5 acres, and oh my goodness, I didn't write down what the total assessment will be. Excuse me? Okay, $193, I'm being told. So $193 for, per unit on, per unit. I still can't see it. There is 4 types of zones within this district, and each zone is assessed a different amount. The total amount being assessed for all the zones is $12,000.
Thank you, Ms. Salcidos. If
Yes.
there's no questions from council, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at this time. Do you have any comments related to this item, Ms. Diane?
No.
Being that there's none and no comments that are forthcoming, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Any additional comments from council? Being that there's none, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt this resolution, which is adoption of resolution number 17-46. Is that right?
Yes.
46. And I have a motion from Councilmember Jackson, second from Councilmember Efrain Silva. We'll go ahead and vote, and that carries 5-0. Very good. So moving down to new business, and we have item number 17, which is a community sponsorship request from the Imperial Regional Reliance, and I have Ms. Zarate that's going to be presenting.
Good evening. Imperial Regional Alliance has submitted a request for a community sponsorship, requesting $750 towards their annual, this is their 3rd annual General Assembly and Economic Summit. And they have complied with all the requirements, and I bring forth this application to see if you will approve it. I don't see, Mark Baza was supposed to be here to present. He wanted to present to you, but I don't see him here.
No, well, I'm going to take this action, and then I know that Liz had sent out a couple of emails about addressing this policy, and I wanted to follow up on that a little bit afterwards. But is there any general comments regarding the sponsorship of this request, any motions or any recommendations on the sponsorship amount or even consideration?
I have to tell you, the folks that have been invited to speak and who will be here to speak, including Bill Higgins, who is the CEO of CalCog, the statewide Council of Governments, and Vince is actually with the Federal Transportation Highway. Anyway, he's a really, really, really big guy in the federal scheme of things with regard to transportation dollars. Michael Bracken, excuse me, most of you probably know him. Michael does all of the economic studies for this area on behalf of SCAG. And so I think that they've got a really great lineup of speakers. And I would like to see us support at the $500 recommended.
So is that a motion, Councilmember
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem?
I won't be able to attend, so I'm hoping folks will be able to go, but
Yeah, I believe that there's a very inspiring dean from Imperial Valley College that will be speaking at the conference as well.
really? Oh,
All
dang, I'm
right.
missing it. Well, shoot, then I would have doubled my request, but
I have a motion from Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Walker, second by Jackson. Any other discussion on this item?
I just want to know who the dean is that's going to be speaking.
but which one is the inspiring dean?
Yeah. Okay, being that there's none, that went ahead and it was approved at $500 sponsorship. Thanks, Liz. Just real quick, Liz, I know that you did send out an email regarding a policy change, and did you get any feedback from any of our council members?
I did not.
Did not.
Wait, I don't remember seeing the email, sorry. What was the
At
request?
the last council meeting, there was a request that council wanted to see the possibility of reviewing the community sponsorship
Right.
and the guidelines.
Yes.
So I went ahead and emailed it out to all the council members.
Right,
And I haven't received any feedback from that, so.
And
okay.
so there was an opportunity to revisit that, and I believe there was a recommendation that the mayor would consider the dollar amount and bring that to council, but there was no feedback in regards to that. So I just want to get a pulse on how we want to move forward.
I still think it puts staff in a really uncomfortable position to be making a recommendation to this council if the mayor has not been brought into the loop in advance. So I think that the mayor should be part of the decision-making process in forming the recommendation in consultation with staff. I think staff does an amazing job of making sure that all of the required documents have been submitted, and that the request complies with the policy. I just would like to see a more active role taken by the mayor before it comes to us here. Because you're the one that kind of understands, the mayor is the one that kind of can see between now and the end of the fiscal year, this is how much money we have left. Traditionally, we've had this number of requests come in, so where does this fit in our?
Well, I, as mayor, I have no problem giving a recommendation on the amount and then bring it to council for further discussion. That's not an issue for me. I just don't know how my other colleagues feel about the mayor's position, providing a recommendation or a funding amount on these types of community requests. So if you guys want to have a brief discussion or any comments in relation to that, now's maybe the time to do that, or no?
I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I think we've been, the last couple of years, we've been pretty consistent with trying to spread that money out as much as possible because we don't have a very big pot. So I think we've been pretty consistent in just awarding $500 rather than even people that are coming and asking for $1,500, $5,000 and such. So I don't know, it's been pretty consistent, but I don't have a problem putting it in the hands of the mayor. Because it's all going to be discussed anyways by the rest of the council.
All right, so maybe this is a policy, I'm hearing maybe it is a policy change, so do we need to bring that back and put it on the agenda?
Yes.
I have no problem trying it out, and maybe it would give a little bit more responsibility and direction from the mayor's position, and I only have 6 more months left anyways. So why don't we go ahead, if it's okay with the council, that we bring back a revised policy?
Okay.
That maybe has the mayor recommending the amounts.
6 more months and $2,400.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, is it acceptable to put that on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, very good. Thanks, Liz. All right, moving down to item number 18. And 18 is the authorized increase targeted code enforcement efforts. And we do have a presentation from Ms. Villacaña. And actually, I just want to thank our council and staff for bringing this up. I think it's kind of overdue and an opportunity to kind of revisit this. So thank you for preparing that and putting this on the agenda.
And I do have a witness in the audience when this
Yes.
was discussed at the Chamber of Commerce. I think that they were very favorably impressed with the thought that this was going forward. So well done, Ms. Villacaña.
And I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you earlier, but I do want to recognize that our public information officer from Navy Base is here as well. So welcome, sir.
Good evening, honorable council and members of the, and mayor and council members. The item before you is basically a request or a strategy plan that we've come up with to enhance our code enforcement efforts. In order to do that, we are requesting direction from City Council as to which direction to take as it relates to code enforcement. As you know, we have a very active code enforcement division. We only have one code enforcement officer. So right now what we're doing is we have, our main purpose is we try to get compliance. If we see some kind of violation, we do a courtesy call or a courtesy letter. And if we don't get compliance, then we start with the active code enforcement efforts, which could mean administrative citation, it could be a criminal citation, or a nuisance proceedings, which like receiverships. The use of administrative citations is very ineffective to this point because what happens is we issue the citation and they don't respond. We issue another citation and they don't respond. And it seems like it's very ineffective because we don't have the resources to be out there collecting or, looking for the individual who's has that citation. Also, what we want to do is, as we all know, we have many issues throughout the city, and we're not alone. There's other cities that are going through the same thing. What we want to do is maybe focus at this time, take it one step at a time, and focus at this time on certain areas within the city. And basically, it would be focus on commercial property maintenance. We have a lot of commercial properties that, as Councilmember Jackson mentioned, weeds. We have an issue with weeds right now, trash, graffiti, and there's also building and safety violations.
You know, Ms. Biacani, I want to throw another one in there. I'm seeing a lot of dead trees, and I really have a lot of fear that the trees causing a safety hazard, either from falling over or from catching on fire or something, but lots of them.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons is from the water reduction, but now people were not aware or were not made aware that it was okay to water your trees except not your lawn, so that's something that we can also focus on. Another code enforcement issue that we have, and we've all seen it, are abandoned residential structures. We have many of them throughout the city, and with this kind of enforcement case, it's sometimes very difficult because the property owners are nowhere to be found, or we don't have so many foreclosure properties now, but still some of them under foreclosure and the bank doesn't respond. So it's very hard to reach the legal owner of these structures. And then another problem that we have is business license enforcement. We are aware that there are many businesses conducting business in El Centro that don't have a business license.
Is that because they're not aware of the requirement, or is it because they're just
I think it's a little bit of
under the
both.
radar?
Because if they don't renew their license, if we're not after them, or, it's just, again, it comes down to resources, and so it's a little bit of both, I think. Mhm. So at this time, what we are proposing and seeking direction from council is to maybe focus on the 4 major commercial corridors within the city of El Centro, and that would be Imperial Avenue, Adams Avenue, 4th Street, and Dogwood Avenue. What we plan to do is also basically target these areas for weed abatement, graffiti, just the previous code enforcement issues that from the previous slide. Also, what we want to do, even though we have almost, I think, close to 200 open, active code enforcement cases, we want to get the top 10 and focus on those. Most of them are residential, and but some of them are commercial.
Norma, can you go back one slide for me, please?
Sure.
So if the request is to kind of enhance our code enforcement officer within these 3 categories, what could potentially get left out of the equation? What are the kinds of things that, because we're prioritizing code enforcement within these 3 areas, what could be impacted and kind of be left unattended or not focused?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So you're asking to concentrate and give these 3 areas a higher level of priority, right? So when you have priorities, it seemed to me that there's other,
something's gonna be
right,
left.
so what gets left out of the equation?
Well, basically, even though we're going to focus on these areas, we're going to continue doing code enforcement throughout the city. Right now, we have a lot of code enforcement cases on banners, which, they're a nuisance, but maybe those can be placed at the
Lesser
bottom of the
priority.
priority.
Yeah.
Cases like that they're not, as important and as these are. but we would still continue to continue with code enforcement efforts throughout the city.
No, Norman, and I know you're probably going to get to this, but does code enforcement mean imposing a fine?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so when you say code enforcement, what exactly does that mean?
Code enforcement basically means that we make sure that there's no nuisance issue. I mean, we get a lot of complaints. Some of them are real complaints. Some of them are just between neighbors. So basically, as long as the issue doesn't involve a code violation under our municipal code or a health and safety issue where someone's at risk of getting hurt or so code enforcement, basically what we do is we make sure that those issues are not, do not exist, or if they do exist, that they get taken care of through the process of, courtesy letters and sometimes citations.
Let me give you an example and see if this would fit. So if we don't allow people to park on their lawns.
Correct.
So if somebody has 4 cars parked on their lawn, somebody calls it in as a code enforcement case. The city's first step would be to go out, contact the property owner, say, can't park the cars on the lawn, need to get them off.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we just kind of escalate from there
Right.
until the cars are gone.
And some of the property owners are, they're very, they comply right away. But then there's others who just kind of like, well, they don't pay attention. And that's when the citations are issued. When we've done everything we can to have them voluntary take care of the problem. And so that's part of code enforcement. So code enforcement is not necessarily citing people. It's just making sure that possible code violations are taken care of or do not exist, any kind of safety or health issue.
All right.
Okay. So going back to concentrating our efforts on the top 10 worst cases, and it wasn't hard to choose from them, but we have more than 10 cases that we're considering the top 10, and I have some photos right now. Also, maybe allow the city attorney or revise, if need to, ordinances that would allow the city attorney to prosecute individuals for city code violations, for graffiti and tagging, and that's a problem that has been ongoing. I know that we revised our graffiti ordinance a few years ago to put more teeth into it, but it hasn't been very successful because other agencies have not been able to cooperate with the city.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad the chief's here, because I had this discussion with the chief probation officer at a Juvenile Justice Commission meeting, and I said, one of the issues we have in the city of El Centro is the catch and release program, where the police department catches the same kids over and over and over again, and nothing happens to them. And so that's why we call it kind of like a catch and release program. And he said that just doesn't happen, I was just like making that up.
But we
I think
could,
we need to
yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
But should we put extra teeth into our graffiti ordinance to where we can prosecute them criminally?
Well,
Or
that's something
equip-
that we need to look at the ordinance, and with the assistance of the city attorney, we can work on that. Our ordinance right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Martin, is that basically work with the district attorney's office to get, if it's a juvenile, get the parents, responsible or.
Your ordinance is set up, although I don't think it necessarily bars city attorney enforcement of a city code violation. It's set up for penal code enforcement because state law is set up for penal code enforcement, and the problem is DAs aren't enforcing, so cities are beginning to, and increasingly. and they're going back to programs they had before DAs took over the processing under state law. Some of the tools in your code enforcement ordinance, not necessarily criminal citations, would be applicable to juvenile situations. Others would be applicable to adult graffiti artists, and I understand you do have some of them.
Betsy, could you walk us through what that would look like if we were to ask you to prosecute?
Yeah, I think we have a slide.
Okay. And the last item that we're seeking direction is maybe to retain a third-party
Collection.
processing company to process citations that are issued that people don't pay attention to. Is that the slide? Which
No,
slide?
I can tell you about
Okay.
the criminal enforcement, and then I believe there's a slide that shows you about the process for
Right.
the administrative citations.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things we would do would be have the code enforcement officer, Frank and Anna, designated as able to write criminal citations. And they have been trained to do so. We get them a ticket book. They would write a criminal citation probably after a warning, and it would be, I had the ability to speak briefly with Commander Ramirez about this, and he suggested that the processing of those could be combined through PD, so you only have one processing system, which involves taking the citation, attaching a misdemeanor or infraction complaint, and I would strongly suggest your ordinance be revised to be a misdemeanor complaint because it gives you the ability to bargain it down and collect costs. And there's a system which Clara Obeso implements where it's filed with, she prepares them, I sign them, it's filed with the court, a court date is assigned, you group them together for minimization of cost of attorney time, and you appear on them. I think there needs to be some education of the judges. I know PD's been really frustrated about that. That's something on the list. To the best of our knowledge, no other city right now in the county, in this county, is doing it. It's possible that Holtville is, but I'm not sure. Dennis Morita did a quick informal survey.
Well, how common is the practice maybe in Coachella Valley or San Diego County?
It's pretty common in Riverside County. Moreno Valley has just hired a deputy, like a couple of days ago, to begin doing this. Indio has an active program. It's pretty common. It's done in most bigger cities. It is becoming increasingly common in impacted cities.
My understanding is that in San Diego, it's the Office of Law Enforcement is basically split up.
Yeah.
So city attorneys handle misdemeanors, district
Correct.
attorney handles felonies.
Correct. And the city attorney handles, well, you can't have a felony violation of your city code, misdemeanor or infractions based on your city code. So what you're prosecuting is your city code violations, and they have to be enough different from state law. You can prosecute them, but I think your code does that. It's possible we could make it better, but right now, you have a good code. It just hasn't been enforced.
So if we were to consider that, and maybe Chief, if you wanted to chime in, do we have the resources to currently to enforce it or follow up with criminal citations?
Well, in-house right now, within the building division, code enforcement division, we have 2 staff members who have taken the appropriate classes to do criminal citations. So we have 2 that would be able to do that, 2 staff members.
I mean, I don't know. I'm favorable to trying something different. And if our chief's supportive of it, and if your staff's supportive, Chief, along with you, Ms. Villacania, and maybe I'll ask the chief to chime in, or any of my council members, or any of the council members chime in.
Definitely want to go back to Ms. Villacania's show and tell with the top 10 list, but we'll hear, no, we want to hear from you, please, Chief.
So there's a couple of different angles from it. One, ideally, the penal code is sufficient as written. It's just
Not enforced.
enforcing it is something else. I think it's a great idea to try to go through city ordinances, but it's going to be very taxing on city staff. And then it isn't just a city operation, you have to get the courts on board to see how much they'd get behind it. I think Chief Prince hopefully either misunderstood you or, in a sense, he's correct. There isn't a lot of catch and release because, honestly, my officers, we don't make much effort to catch them because nothing happens to it. That's what we've said over and over again. This afternoon, I spoke with the Assistant Chief Probation Officer to say, look, I'm gonna go before council. My understanding, and I'm saying this to her, and I think Mr. Garcia can weigh in too, is that and it's two different things, juveniles and adults. With juveniles specifically, which is probably the majority of them, the juvenile justice system, their priority is not getting juveniles into the system. They try to work everything short of putting them into the system. She says, that's correct. I said, a typical juvenile that we catch doing graffiti, what do you guys do? It's the work crews. So we've come to a point where I'm becoming pleased that these taggers have to wake up on a Saturday, but that's really not, in my eyes, that's not sufficient. I said, okay, someone that's a repeat, a tagger, that they just admit to doing all kinds of, he says, yeah, we'll do the same thing, send them to a work crew. And that's without a record. I said, how about restitution? She said, yeah, we can order restitution. She said, but you and I both know a lot of them don't have money, so as long as they're paying $1, a month or so, they're in compliance. So that's the frustration, is it's over and over again. And there's two types of graffiti. There's the taggers, and then there's the gang graffiti. What's really hitting us right now is the taggers, but they're crews. So what you see as initials, it isn't just one person, it's a crew out there. You have to put a lot of effort into trying to identify them, but all the effort, if it's gonna result in, truly, I think the ordinances allow you to fine them $5,000, $10,000. But if we seriously think we're gonna collect that, we shouldn't enter it thinking we're gonna collect thousands upon thousands of dollars, because I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't believe juveniles, city ordinance, penal code, federal law, you're not gonna get them locked up. You're just not gonna get them locked up. They're looking for rehabilitation, which is probably a good point. It's just we gotta find some way that works. Personally, I think that the city ordinances would work if you go after the guardians and start charging them the fines so that they put some pressure on their kids to say, you're not gonna do this anymore because it's costing me money, or they have to step up. I don't know if the courts are doing it, but when we get a conviction for graffiti, they're supposed to do, it's up to a 2-year suspension of their driver's license.
Wow.
The problem is, the way I read it, that's a conviction. When they start plea bargaining it and dropping everything down, I think that just goes out the window. I'd be very surprised if you have anyone in the valley that has had their license suspended because of graffiti issue. It may have happened, I just don't know. I think there's so much, the criminal justice system works because of plea bargains. It's more efficient, and so I don't know how that affects, the conviction part of it.
Wow.
It's frustrating, something has to be done. I would say that if we're going to move forward, and I fully encourage it, and we'll do what we can, is we have to set the example, and there's a lot of city property that has to be cleaned up before we're trying to tell other people that they need to clean up, or simultaneously at least. I was downtown Main Street last week, and there's just a lot of graffiti on signs. It gets expensive, but somehow signs have to get cleaned up. And a lot of buildings that are probably city property, so. We've got a lot of work to do on our part as we're asking citizens to do their part.
Point well taken, Chief. Absolutely.
But we need to talk to the courts too to see how much, because we don't want to put all this effort into it if the courts are saying, look, it doesn't matter what you do.
We're not going
You have to
there.
do it without us,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they can save us some time. We'll look for Plan B or Plan C.
I know Councilmember Jason Jackson, so can I, if I may, Councilmember Jackson, can we follow up with Presiding Judge Plurd on that? And is that, or you're talking about our CEO of the court? I guess what I'm trying to take away, because I really appreciate this item on the agenda, but I really want to take some action tonight on addressing this. And so, do you want to have some sort of discussion with our presiding judge first, or our CEO of our court, before we bring it out, or do we just move forward?
I think you need,
That's conversations that I think need to be on a political nature, where the council members individually, we all know certain judges.
Yeah.
Those are conversations that I think are I think at that level.
So I would, again, I would think we would go to our PJ, the PJ, which is Judge Plur, who then would actually talk to Judge Uoa, who's the juvenile, and get those folks on board.
So I believe,
I thought it was Quan.
Well,
But why, could we have, I think Jason's right, I mean, we have a lot of folks
Yeah.
that we come into contact, but I could see a more formal meeting being set with the
Okay.
mayor and our city attorney, our city manager, our police chief, the district attorney, presiding judge, and our chief probation officer, and whoever else you think should be there. Probably county CEO probably needs to show
so
up, but.
we had a meeting almost a year ago, I think
Yeah.
the mayor was there, and we had Judge Kwan and Judge Uo were there. I think the philosophy, though, when, especially juveniles, is really keeping away from any type of punishment. It's more rehabilitate them. We just got to mesh that into, they stop
Okay, that's
destroying
not
our
working
city.
for us anymore,
Yeah.
though.
No.
I
So
think-
I think,
Yeah.
Well,
We
this
need
state
to
is moving,
revisit.
this state is moving adults towards that way too. So
Yeah,
you're gonna see less and less
I
ability
understand.
to,
And Chief,
person.
I've been approached by many business owners, and, you know, it's all over social media that a lot of the prevalent tagging that we see, I call it the serial tagging that we see all over the city, it is groups of people. You're absolutely correct. Your officers have informed me that they've been seeing that as well. But they're not all juveniles. And I think that we need to do something. We need to provide some sort of direction, because if we go after some of those adults, then we will send a message that we're taking this seriously. Because right now, we're sitting on our hands. If we rely on other agencies to try to do something, that's what we've been doing for some time. The district attorney is bogged down with misdemeanors and felonies, and this is just not a priority. But it is a priority for us, because it's our city that's suffering.
and that's why the city ordinance would be our best avenue right now, because most of it is under our control.
Let me get to Councilmember Jackson. Go ahead.
Yeah, first off, I want to thank, last week we had, what kind of started this was we had a certain property that was in violation of many codes. And I want to thank Frank and Norma, Chief Herbert, Marcella, and Betsy, because, and this is where I really learned how inept we are in this area, where I found that it was all about giving a notice and then coming back 15 days later and giving another notice, and then waiting 10 more days and then giving another notice, and then found out that we don't collect any fees because basically anybody that comes and pays a violation ticket is doing it voluntarily, because probably they don't know any better that they can get away with it if they don't pay it. But collectively, between all of city staff putting pressure and visiting this particular property, I can tell you that today it's cleaned up. Vehicles have been removed. Hazmat was out there today. Thank you, Chief. I think they were out there today or yesterday cleaning up spilled oil and oil that was not stored in proper containers and such. And it's reflective of what we can do when we decide that we're going to put teeth into this. We have ordinances on the books. We don't enforce them. And I know a lot about Indio because one of my best friends is mayor of Indio, so I'm going to refer to a lot of Indio codes. But what they've done in Indio has been extremely successful. They've gone after the parents. And probably exactly what you're saying, Chief, is the system is built to punish kids, but it's certainly built to go after parents or guardians. And so they'll levy fines on the parents. If the parents don't pay, they put liens on the property. I mean, it's a real legitimate thing there. But you drive around Indio, you don't see the graffiti that we have. And they're a much larger city than us. They're 85,000 and probably in territory, probably 3 times the size of El Centro. You don't see the graffiti that we have. Currently they have 5 code enforcement officers, 1 supervisor, and 1 admin. They collect in citation fees on a conservative number over $200,000 a year to the general fund through citations and liens, which then turns around and basically pays for that enforcement. And what I saw this city do last week is what I want to see this city do every single week, is go after people that are constantly ignoring our city ordinances, constantly ignoring their properties, weeds growing in the streets, their sidewalks, overgrown trees. Did the National Guard Armory get cleaned?
Almost. Norma
Okay.
has an update.
Yeah, and so I've had a thing about this for a while, and city staff all knows it because I met with everybody, I think everybody last week. But it looks like they're getting going. I think they said they were going to do it this weekend. I haven't looked, but you know, I've watched council members in the city of Indio go after DMV, go after their post office.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and here we sit. Our post office is, quite honestly, is despicable. I mean, just dead oleanders.
Better than it was, though.
Better
which
than
is
it was,
embarrassing.
but barely
Yeah.
better than it was. Our National Guard Armory had weeds that were literally taller than you, Cheryl.
Well, that's not saying.
That's not
oh,
saying
yeah.
much. But, and I drove, Liz and I drove by it last week, and the weeds and the grass had grown so big that a homeless person had taken a couple pieces of wood and put it behind some grass and had built like a little makeshift house on the side of the armory. I mean, this is what we have going on in the city of El Centro, and we're not doing anything about it. And it just so happened today, there was somebody that posted something on social media about, you know, weeds, and it was
It's on
specific.
my page.
Yeah.
Next to my grandson.
Yeah, they tagged you on it, but I saw it, and it was right downtown. I was just showing Efren the pictures, and right across the street, in fact, it's the corner of Sixth and
Right by the American
Sixth
Legion.
and Broadway, yeah. I don't know that you could walk down that sidewalk right now. The weeds are completely grown across that sidewalk.
Isn't that where we're gonna have the food trucks? Sixth and.
No,
No,
it's the next block over.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, and weed abatement's gonna be a huge issue for every single city throughout Southern California because of all the rain. But we can't use that as an excuse. We've gotta do something about it. I agree with Chief.
Some weed whackers.
We have a lot of properties ourselves that we need to take care of our own house. But as we're taking care of our house, we need to make other people take care of theirs. And I had an issue. I had some weeds at my property, and when I started yelling and screaming about this, somebody said, "Hey, you have some weeds." And private sector, I had somebody in 2 hours, it was cleaned. That's what I want to see us do. I know it's not the same because we're tied up in all this bureaucracy, but I saw something last week that I was extremely proud of because the city staff came together. They all went out there, bombarded the guy. I mean, I think we had city attorney, we had Frank, we had fire chief. They were all there,
Cleaned up nice.
and they, you know, 8th and Main. It was the car wash. And, you know, and we got results. And it was just, it was a really, really good thing to see. So I know it can be done, and I don't want to make this like the Veterans Memorial just because I know it got done once. We can build everything in 3 months. But we saw it work. So that's all we got to do. And I think we have, in speaking to staff, I spoke to Frank, I spoke to Anna. We have employees that want to do this, but they need our support. They need our direction. We have, you know, they've been trained in 832 PC so they can give criminal citations. We have a city attorney that is itching to go to court on something. Yeah. So let's do it, because every single day, and I'm sure all of us get the same complaint every single day, that we have graffiti, we have weeds, we have, you know, homeless, we have, somebody wrote on Facebook that there was people having sex in the city square. I mean, this is our home, and it's getting really, really bad. So whatever it is that we need to do, whatever direction we need, whatever, you know, I want to see us go out to this third party for collection. We don't collect any money. I would like to see a second code enforcement officer. I know that Letitia's cringing right now, but if we would start collecting on some of the citations we write, we could have a somewhat net neutral situation by adding a staff member, but we don't even collect anything. So we're not even paying towards the officer we have right now.
Yeah.
So we need to start collecting, we need to start showing some revenue, And then we can add, next year, on next year's budget, we can sit there and say, and we can justify adding another code enforcement officer. And because then it start paying for itself. So this is what I'd like to see, is I'd like to see us move forward with, and I spoke to Betsy about maybe a pilot program, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to speak with that firm.
We did, and Norma has the information for them, and it's on the action slide as to how you would like to proceed.
Good.
Okay.
There's a firm that we actually already do business with. They did an abatement project for us. The city of Indio uses them. They said they have great success, and they're the ones that collect all their funds for the city of Indio. And we already have a business relationship with them already. So I'd like to see us move forward on that. I'd like to let our staff do the job, and I'd like them to know that everybody up on this dais is fully 100% supportive. We're going to get calls, and I think we all need to understand this. We're going to get calls from business owners and our friends and people that we know and relatives and say, oh, an inspector just came and gave us a citation. And our response is going to be, then clean it up. It can't be anything but that, because if we start taking an attitude that, well, it's our friend, let's cut him a break, then our city staff's not gonna want to move forward. So I think we need to be very forceful. People that are going to complain need to be told, well, then clean it up. And it's just got to be as simple as that. So.
All right, so before, we do have, and I know,
I think Norma's done with the
yeah, I know what the presentation, so Chief, you're on board.
Just one thing, the city ordinance says that graffiti violations shall be charged under the appropriate penal codes.
Yeah, it says as applicable. I think there's some tightening we want to do, and that's one of the things. I would like to make it a misdemeanor, because if you're going to prosecute it, you want to make it worthwhile. Maybe a couple of other little tweaks. If you really want to consider liening parents' properties, it's legally available to you, but we do not have that in the ordinance now. We only have the ability to fine parents and collect against them in a civil manner. So there's some things we can do to beef it up. I'd also like to see if and when you retain a company to do the collection, if we could try to collect some back citations, but see, don't know if it can be done.
What would it take to add that kind of language to, we just have to
An ordinance change.
amend it?
Yeah, we could, any ordinance revisions you want, I think, can be ready for June 6th, at least for introduction.
That'd be great.
I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
All right, so let me, Chief, thanks again for your input. I'm gonna
Thank you, Chief.
bring it back to Ms. Villacana, and maybe you can go over the proposed citation process and those top 10 offenders, and then we can kind of wrap it up with giving you some direction.
Okay, just really quick, I wanted to go over some of the top 10 offenders that we have right now. We try to get a lot of pictures in the slides. So the first one we have is 1999 North Imperial Avenue. I think we're all familiar with that site. We've tried working with the property owner. We've talked to the property owner. The property owner has not responded. Then we have 1455 North Imperial Avenue. As you can see, same thing. And then we have the old, I think it's the Elks Lodge, 196 West State. Mrs. Sanders has been very helpful in helping us trying to locate the property owner, because it's under a lodge and nobody, so we're having a hard time getting them to comply. What happens with 196 West State is people are actually living there, so we get a lot of calls from the police department. We kick them out, we have the place boarded up, and then they go back in. So it's just a constant revolving door, specifically with that property, 196 West State. As for residential properties, we have 2211 West Olive. This is another property that's under the legal ownership, no longer exists. It's a corporation. And then 437 West State, 875 Glenwood Drive. This is one that the picture that you see there is they cleaned up the property according to them. So that's a cleaned up property, but we still have issues. And then we have 121 East Orange. Then we have 1201 Stacy. We've tried for over a year working with the property owner to just get rid of that block wall, or, you know, that could be a safety issue. Then we have 235 West Olive. As you can see, this is a perfect location for vagrants in the home and, you know, just people to go in there. And 237 West Hamilton.
So now, let me ask you a question, because, you know, as we talk, there's questions that kind of I think about. And what's the dividing line between something that could be handled through code enforcement and something that is just an owner's poor choice of maintenance on a property? So, you know, this picture on the corner on 237 West Hamilton, the top corner. So if you look at the house and all the debris that's there, appears to be a safety, a fire concern perhaps, right? So I think that may fall under the umbrella of code enforcement and wanting to clean up that junk. But then you look on the front and on the tall weeds and the overgrown grass in front, is that something that is also code enforceable?
It could be, but in these cases, particular cases, we're not even looking at that. We're looking at the more of the safety issue, abandoned homes where, you know, the people go in there. Yeah, but that could be, but that's not our priority. I mean, it's.
So if a home only had the overgrown grass in the front and everything else was okay, we wouldn't go after this property owner here?
No, unless it was something that's, like Councilmember Jackson said, something that's I mean, we would send them probably a courtesy letter, you know, because of a safety issue, you know, but it's not a priority at this time. We're going mostly after health and safety issues, like the abandoned homes, and.
Are these two homes abandoned, West Isle and Hamilton?
Yes. But they
There's
keep.
folks living at the Stacy Avenue home.
Yes. The 237 West Hamilton, I believe this is a house where, I mean, both of these properties don't have utilities, but people constantly are living there or go in there and live there, so.
Have we identified the owners of both of those?
Yes, one of the owners, I believe one of them is deceased and the family doesn't want to carry on the responsibility. The other one, 235 West Tile, I think that's the one that the owner has not been found.
What about the receivership approach that we did a couple of years ago, where we went through the whole exercise and acquire receivership and clean up the property?
And that's one option, one tool that we have. However, before we identify a property to go into receivership, we got to make sure, because sometimes the city does not recuperate the amount that it puts in. So that's why before we go into it, we go before the city council to
Cost estimate.
yeah.
and all
So
of that.
that's our last option because of the cost. We've had, I think, one successful case, the Maple property, the apartment buildings, where we actually, I think, were able to recuperate the money that we put in, but the other ones, unfortunately, you know, we didn't.
The 1201 Stacy, there's somebody living in that residence?
Yes.
And their issues, they just won't take down that
They
wall?
just want, take care of the, yeah.
I don't want to have be thought about someone maybe who has a soft heart, but when there's poverty issues involved where they can't, I'm not necessarily, I mean, obviously, these are abandoned houses, but maybe this wall, if there was a issue of poverty where they didn't have the means or they didn't have the money to demo it, or maybe there's some disability issues or involved, I don't know. I mean, is there any city service, or can the city assist in helping the resident with maybe those types of deals? Because again, I don't want to get in a situation where we're criminalizing people, well, this is me personally, but criminalizing them because of a poverty situation. You know, we look at some of these situations, it's clearly negligence and you know, arrogance on their part. But I know in maybe some very small cases, there may be some poverty issues, and I don't want to necessarily be criminalizing them for that. And I just don't know if there's any city services that can help in with that. Like, for example, our graffiti abatement. You know, if they don't, for example, if they can't take the graffiti off, then we'll be more than happy to paint it, for them.
Right.
But I just didn't know if there's certain circumstances where the city can help under those extreme
Right.
situations.
Well, typically what we try to do, if someone comes to us, if we issue a warning for compliance, if they come to us and say, you know what, we work with them. Sometimes we give them 3, 4, 5 months. As long as they're working,
Okay.
then we don't continue with the citation process. But these homes are the ones that
Right,
basically
right.
don't. And then with CDBG funds, if some of these homes were occupied, then maybe we could refer them to CDBG for, maybe they could be assisted with CDBG funds
If it's still around.
to bring up if it's still around, to bring up the house up to code.
All right, well, I don't want to necessarily drag this out too much. Any other properties?
Just
These are the
just a few
graffitis.
graffiti, as you can see. We drove around town and just graffiti, and some of the graffiti is within our facilities, so it's something that we need to take care of. These are just a few snapshots, and also on utility poles.
The weed abatement, we do have some weed abatement terminology, but in relation to just dead trees in general, is there some language or something in the ordinance that identifies dead vegetation
Well,
or something?
if the dead vegetation if it's a safety issue, yes, we can go after them. If the dead tree is about to fall, or, we can go after that. Now, some people like to have their grass dead. I mean, on those cases, we don't go after them. It's just, no matter what you say, they like just to have a yard.
Dirt lot.
Dirt lot, yes.
All right.
So what just to finish my presentation, our goal is to improve the response from administrative citations, as we mentioned, by contracting out with a third-party agency. And then what we're asking at tonight is maybe allow us to go back to review our city codes, and maybe allow our trained code enforcement staff to criminally cite with the coordination with the process with the police department. Also consider maybe looking back at our graffiti ordinance to make the offense a misdemeanor, and also authorize staff to initiate the process of retaining a third-party processing agency.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Yeah, I
All
do
good stuff.
appreciate Councilmember Jackson, and I believe Councilmember Garcia participated as well, and staff. I think it's excellent. I think the timing's right. I would like to see this come back to council as quickly as possible, but that's just me.
Nope, that's true.
Is that, okay? So
Yep,
what
yep.
type of timeline, guys, would you like to?
I think what we had planned is maybe come back on June 6th with some revisions to, I'm sorry.
Marcella was suggesting that perhaps we can get the ordinances at least in pretty close to draft form for the Community Enhancement Task Force meeting, which I believe is the 24th.
24th.
Yes,
Next
and
Wednesday.
and this is going to be an agenda item at the task force.
And that's this month, correct? Or
Next
that's
week.
Next
Next
week.
Wednesday.
Okay, that'd be perfect then, right?
Uh-huh.
So then it would go to community enhancement, back to us, and then we would have to have public hearings as well. Or do we have to have public hearings regarding the revisions of the ordinances?
No, you have to have a public meeting and an introduction, first reading. If you choose to have a public hearing, you certainly can.
Oh, well.
I don't think that's necessary. Can we, what can we do today as far as just simple direction to staff to,
Talk to him.
that we don't need to take actual action on? And maybe Betsy, you can, what are we allowable to give direction on without putting it as an agenda item with action? Or actually, this is an action item, isn't it?
This is an action item.
So I would like to I don't know if we have, I guess we would do it in a
I think
motion?
we've solved number one, because the Public Works Director can designate the code enforcement officers to carry out the criminal citation. What needs to happen, as the chief pointed out, is some serious discussions. I had initial conversations with Commander Rodriguez, but there now has to be, we need to go have a meeting with the people who process citations, which means Ruben Martel, and begin to talk about how that actually would work.
So can we put all these in a form of a motion? And as far as moving forward with initiating the third-party processing, changing and working on amending our city ordinances, where you want to criminalize a misdemeanor, also look at the addition of leaning of properties. Can we make all this into a motion form and proceed?
We can obtain a proposal for the, that Norma and the finance director can look at that has dollars amounts in it. That's where some of the information for this came from.
I would like to move forward with a motion. I think we all are in agreement that we need to move forward and that we don't waste any time in moving forward for our city.
All right, so I do have a motion from, does the actual action item need to be amended at all? Or can,
I don't think you need the first part of it because we solved it administratively. So direction to staff to do number 2 and 3, consider amendment and authorize initiation of the process.
all right, so we do have a motion for Councilmember Jackson to move forward with items 2 and 3. We also have a second by Councilmember Garcia. We'll go ahead and vote. And that item is adopted 5-0.
I just want to say again, thank you to all the city staff. I know this was a quick turnaround. Norma did a great job, Betsy, and all the city staff that have worked on it since last week. So thank you very much.
All right. Very good. Okay, moving down. I was trying to get you guys out here by 7:15, but this was some good discussion. Thanks again to our council members on that. So in regards to the successory informational items, you have item number 19, Charlie's Mexican Food on 401 Broadway. And then in regards to successor agency, there's no business scheduled. Successor housing agency, no business scheduled. At this time, we'll go ahead and combine our task force reports and comments. Is there any, before I do that, Diana, is there any public comments? No. No? Being that there's none, we'll go ahead and combine those. Who would like to start? Either Councilmember Jackson or Councilmember Garcia?
I'll start. I attended the Dancing with the Stars event where I had the great opportunity to watch our former mayor, current councilman Jason Jackson put on quite a show. It was a very, very well-attended event. The opulence in that hall was something that I hadn't seen before after attending many events there. So they're definitely improving as things go on. And this event is just a wonderful one. It was very well attended. Everybody was excited. It seemed like everybody had a great time. The show was amazing, and I look forward to attending next year.
Excellent. Thank you.
So
Mayor Pro Tem?
since the last meeting, had an opportunity to attend the SCAG General Assembly Regional Council meeting up in Palm Desert from the 3rd through the 5th. That included a tour of the San Andreas Fault that was put together by Dr. Lucy Jones. So she's really concentrating on Southern California's efforts for what's going to happen, not if, but when the big one strikes. And her focus really isn't so much on emergency response and all of that, but planning. Because right now, if you look at where we have our major infrastructure, water, sewer, power, and all of that, it's all running like down the same corridors. So if there's ever when the big one comes, we're going to be without water and gas and natural gas and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty scary. Anyway, so that was a great event, though, the General Assembly Dancing with Stars. Jason, you were amazing, raised lots of money for a great, great cause. I've been appointed again to help with the Harvest Bowl, which is the Imperial Valley Food Bank's major, major fundraising event. It's going to be on October 8th this year. Excuse me, 7th, 14th. Sorry, 14th.
14th.
It's going to be one of those
Have a
days.
Sharpie.
October 14th.
14th.
14th, and it's going to be hosted up in Brawley. Let's see. Oh, yesterday at the El Centro Chamber Board meeting, we had as a guest speaker Dean Ponce from SDSU. So for our League of California Cities meeting on the 25th, he will also be our guest speaker. At the chamber meeting, did share with the rest of the members there. We were very excited about our overlay project. The code enforcement we talked about, the community cleanup event scheduled for July 22nd, and, oh, the new water meters that are coming. Shared with that also, and I had a question with regard to the water meters. Are we gonna be able to remotely shut off and/or put back in service when we transition to the new water meters?
We contracted for 200 of these remote shut-off and
Okay.
turn-on system devices that go inside the meter box. So our worst offenders will be blessed with this unit, and we'll be able to turn it off and turn it on from
Remotely?
the office.
Wow, amazing. Okay. That concludes my report.
All right, Councilmember Silva?
Also wanted to congratulate our former mayor, and he did a very formidable performance at the Dancing with the Stars Gala, and actually obtained a third place recognition, and
That was Rob.
It was Rob, that's hilarious.
and if, in case you don't know, I'm a founding member of the foundation that puts this together, and this event keeps getting better and better every year.
Every year.
And I think attendance is obviously a testimony of that. We have 5 individuals that have approached us already that are volunteering to participate next year's Dancing with the Stars. And I think that's the level of interest in people now wanting to do it is exciting, and it reflects on the program and how it's organized. And the Ivy Press called this the event of the year in Imperial Valley a year or so ago. And this year, I think we're going to have a record profit in terms of the fundraising. So one of the discussions that we're going to have at the board level is how do we either increase the amount of scholarships that we award to our high school students, and also foundation, I don't know that we make this very public, but the foundation sets aside $10,000 a year on top of the scholarship money to help out high school clubs in need of travel funds when they have to attend, FFA functions or mock trial functions and other functions like that. And we always, sometimes we have to increase our budget for that purpose. So thank you for attending. Thank you for those kind words, and I'll relay that to my colleagues on the foundation. And I just want to add that we had Marcela and I had a meeting earlier today with some members of the Mexican consulate. As you may recall, the city has an MOU with the consulate, kind of designating our old post office pavilion as a cultural center. And also we reported sometime back of some workshops that were going to be taking place at the old post office, from guitar lessons to photography classes to chorus and those kinds of community workshops. And those proved to be incredibly successful. The Consulate of Mexico is wanting to extend the time frame and also have workshops during the summer, which I think is really exciting, and opportunities for our citizens and to be able to do those kinds of cultural activities in the summertime. So it's worked out. That relationship has worked out really well, and I think it's a plus for our community that we have that MOU and the increased opportunities for cultural learning.
Excellent. Councilmember Jackson?
Yeah, thank you. I had a great time at Dancing with Stars. My partner and I were very happy that we landed all of our moves, and I think one of the media's asked us or asked me afterwards what I thought about third place, and I said, you know what, everybody won, including and more importantly the kids won, because I think we set an all-time record financially, but I certainly am not a dancer, but I did it because it was for the kids, and we raised a lot of money, and so congratulations to all the participants. And I think Edgar told me he wanted to follow in suit, because I think most of the council, I think Alex is going to step up here pretty soon.
Nancy disability.
Disability, come on.
Mental doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
But yeah, I'd love to see either Eggard or Alex, or maybe even both,
Eggard.
participate next year. The following day, participated and went to the El Centro Day at Petco, and had a great time there, although it was really, really cold, unexpectedly cold. But yeah, it was a good time, and I am glad that it's over. My ribs can now heal properly. But it was a good time, so I look forward to attending next year as a spectator instead of a participant. So.
Very good. Just real quick, just attended Costco's 25 years celebration. I've been here in the Imperial Valley, or been in El Centro for 25 years. Amazing. So it was a pretty neat event. They recognized our 25-year employees. Also attended the Homeless Task Force report, and I asked Norma to provide you a copy with it. Incredible information. 64% increase in homeless population in our county. So 1,071 individuals that are homeless. 242 of them are women. So pretty interesting information. I want to thank the City of El Centro, our chief, Marcela, for showing leadership in that. But very interesting information. They did a first-class act in identifying the homeless issue. Also, I encourage you guys to pick up your edition of Chief
Really
Madueño's Police Department annual report. Very nicely done,
Very
Chief.
nice.
I like the page where I'm highlighted, so thank you. So thank you for that, Chief.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I showed that to my mom, so so I do want to thank you for that. She has great information. Also had an opportunity to sit down with the census. The census is right around the corner. 2020 census is right around the corner. They contacted the top 300 cities in the 7 western states, and we are one of them. So we had a meeting with Stacy and Marcella. So they are getting ready to initiate the census for 2020. We are approaching and teetering between 47,000 and 50,000. That's a significant milestone for our city. Amazing thing about the census, it is going to cost $17 billion to count 480 million people in the United States. $17 billion is what they budgeted for the 2020 census. So if you're going to need a job, they'll be hiring some folks. But the other interesting thing is in the 2010 census this is the first time the state of California did not pick up a congressional seat. The state of Texas picked up 4 seats in 2010. So it kind of gives you an idea of the population shift that's taking place.
Probably a good thing that we didn't get any congressional seats.
Right. So census, and then I also want to thank Liz for the press release on the street overlay project. I think we also got a front page article out of it, and I really think it's a great idea that we highlight our public works projects, and a lot of amazing things happening in our city. The last thing I do want to share is with summer approaching, I know that we are off July 4th. So I was hoping maybe staff can consider if maybe we do go dark July 16th. That would give us the entire month off for July, and I just don't know how that would shake out with staff and department heads. And
Can we
then,
look at August as an alternative?
yeah, well, we would have another extra week that we could take off in August as well.
Yeah, because I might be gone, like the last half of August.
So maybe what we could do is take that 16th off. Well, I'll let staff kind of decide, but we are off on the 4th of July, which is good, and so if we can start thinking about which days we want to go
What
dark.
if we had our last meeting in August, or July, and our first meeting in August, and then took the first meeting off and the last meeting off? First meeting off in July, go dark,
Okay.
meet the second meeting in July, first meeting in August, and
Well,
then go dark.
we're
for the
actually,
rest.
July 4th is on a Tuesday, so
Yeah.
we're off.
Right.
So, well, we can kick it around. Or maybe we can talk to our department heads and figure out
See
what
what's
needs to
coming
take
up.
place.
Yeah.
And so with that, I think we're good. I saw Mr. Baeza walk in. You're okay?
We gave you $500.
Yeah,
You're good to go.
yeah. I do apologize. No problem. So with that, we will stand adjourned till June 6th. Thank you.